discussion over naming nomenclatures and formulas. And we are starting today with naming ternary acids. Now, how do we recognize acids? Well, again, they start with H. And then they have a polyatomic ion attached to the H. So when we're naming them, we have to remember, say no to hydro. Say no to hydro. You do not use the prefix hydro when you're naming a ternary acid. So you're going to have an H followed by a polyatomic anion, and that ending is going to be an ATE ending or an ITE ending. And it's very simple. If it has an ATE ending, then you change the ending to ic. If the ion ends in ITE, you change it to us. Ate to ic, ite to us. Ateitis sounds like a disease you might catch. I ate something and I got sick. And then another way to remember ite to us is the word righteous. So let's take a look at some examples. All right, H2SO4. We have, it starts with H, so we know it's an acid. And then we have this item here, which is called sulfate. So 8 to ic. 8 to ic, so sulfate changes to sulfuric. Now I have a lot of students that will write sulfic. That's not right. You keep the in there. Sulfuric acid. You just have to get used to it. So sulfuric acid is the name there. H2SO3 looks very similar to our first example. So we know it's an acid, starts with H, and we know it's a ternary acid because it has 3 or more elements in it. And we basically have to look up the name of that. It's called sulfite. So what do things that end in ITE change to? Sulfurous, O-U-S. You'll also notice there is no hydro on the front. Right? So not ic this time, but sulfurous. And because of that, this is sulfite, ite to ic. This is sulfate, ate. Excuse me. Let me say it again. This is sulfite, ite to us. This is sulfate, ate to ic. So sulfurous acid. H3PO4. We have another ternary acid. Starts with an H. 3 or more elements. So that's called phosphate. So 8 to ic. It's not called phosphic acid. It's called phosphorus acid. Sorry. Phosphoric acid. Making some mistakes that my students make. Must be staying up too late doing this. So disregard that. Phosphoric acid, and the reason is phosphate changes to ic. So phosphoric acid. HNO2. HNO2 is a ternary acid. You have H, tells you that's an acid. 3 or more elements. It's ternary. This is called nitrite. And ite changes to us. So nitrous acid would be your answer for that one. And then HMNO4, again, this is a ternary acid, starts with H, 3 or more elements. And MnO4 is called permanganate. It ends in ATE, so what did H change to? H changed to ic, so acid would be your answer for that one. Permanganic acid. Again, none of these have hydro in front of them. That's important to know because they're all ternary. If they were binary, they would all have hydro in front. All right, hydrates. Well, with hydrates, very simple. You name the first part of the compound as you would an ionic compound. So you have to go back to your rules from earlier. And then the water is named by looking at the coefficient that's in front of the water. Whatever the coefficient is, you use the prefix for that coefficient, and then you follow that with the word hydrate. So let's take a look. We have magnesium, and then we have sulfate. So we have magnesium sulfate. That's only part of the name. 7, what's the prefix for 7? Hepta. And then at the very end, we don't say water, we say hydrate. So these have extremely long names. Magnesium sulfate heptahydrate would be our answer for that one. For this one, we have calcium. And then what's after the calcium? A single element. So chlorine changes to chloride. So we have calcium, chloride, and then what's the prefix for 2? Prefix for 2 is di. And then we finish it with the word hydrate. So calcium chloride dihydrate. Pretty easy to get these. And it makes you sound really smart because they are a mouthful to say. And then the last one, well, we have copper. So we know it's going to be copper. And we have what after the copper? We have sulfate. But we have to be careful because copper can be +1 or +2. So we're even going to have Roman numeral 1 or Roman numeral 2 here. I notice there's nothing down here where the copper subscript is, which tells us it's a 1. And that means that the -2 that sulfate has was canceled out. And what's the only thing that's going to cancel out a -2? A +2. So this has to be copper 2, Roman numeral 2. Had it been Cu2SO4, that means the 2 was crisscrossed over. And this would be copper 1. But this is copper 2 sulfate. And what's the prefix for 5? Penta. And then we end the whole thing with the word hydrate. And the answer is copper 2 sulfate pentahydrate. No need for this little asterisk here. That's definitely a typo. So you get rid of that. And that is the end of our formulas and nomenclature PowerPoint.